Hey everyone, Zaronce here. Today we are going to look at DK changes for Season 2 of Shadowlands 9.1 Chains of Domination patch. Right, so first things first, a lot of shit to look forward to here. If you're an Unholy DK enthusiast, it's time to dust off your Rune Blade and get ready for some action because these changes look pretty damn good. Alright, now that being said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, it's not all blueberries and apples or whatever the fuck you want to say. So we're going to start off with a bit of a nerf. This is actually a pretty big nerf. This is an example of raid tuning getting in the way of PvP tuning, and even, I mean, this is even a nerf for Mythic Plus. If you're a big Mythic Plus person, AMZ was not nearly as strong in Mythic Plus as it was in raids, and I feel like there were a lot of ways that they could have changed this to nerf it in raids and not have as much of an impact on other styles of play, but it is what it is. Obviously none of this is final, but if this is what we're going to expect going into 9.1, this is a pretty big nerf to AMZ. The cooldown is now 3 minutes instead of 2, and it has an absorption cap which is equal to roughly the DK's max health. So it absorbs a full health bar of damage, maybe a little more once verse is included, and then it dissipates. So it's a pretty big nerf. It no longer syncs up with wings, which is really scary against rets. It's now available for at best every other combustion, assuming the fire mage gets it to about 1.5 minutes and no less, with Firestarter and all their other talents that reduce the cooldown of it. So it's desynced from all the scariest burst spells now for us, and we're pretty much never going to take Big Zone anymore because there's no point. It's just going to dissipate that much faster if you take Big Zone, and it'll probably stop the first couple globals and that's it, and then you're pretty much screwed. So it frees up a PvP slot, PvP talent slot, in that sense that Big Zone is really a lot more niche now, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to use properly. And so this is a pretty big nerf to our utility and to our defensive kit against casters, but fear not, we get compensated in other ways. Alright, so let's scroll down. We'll find the only other DK changes are going to be in the PvP section. Right, so all this jargon, yada yada, this is decent changes for us. I'm talking about the stuff up here. Decent changes, sure, moving in the right direction, sure, but we're not going to go over that because that's not DK specific. Alright, so new PvP talents: Spell Warden, Death's Echo. Alright, Spell Warden. Now it's annoying that you got to go to a whole separate page. Like this is a page on the forums where people actually explain what the hell you're looking at, and you can find in other spots too. But so Spell Warden is your rune of Spell Warding is applied with twice the effect. So pretty good tech against caster cleaves if you're going to be targeted, but not a huge change. And then the other one, Death's Echo, gives us a second charge to a couple of our spells. Most importantly, Death Grip. That's pretty big. That'll be really annoying for people to deal with, but I don't know if we're ever actually going to have the option of taking that, just because of how tight it's going to be to fit all of the good talents in. Right, so the first banger coming in right here, Strangulate, is now available to all specs for PvP talent. It's a 15-yard range, but this is pretty big. This is actually really big, right? So now we get a 15 range blanket silence for all specs. This is huge against casters. It's huge to shut down healers. I mean, this is a great change. More so in arena than in battlegrounds, but still, no matter which way you spin it, this is amazing. This is huge. Necrotic Aura is now only available to Unholy, so one of the themes here is going to be that you're going to be this shift towards Unholy. Unholy is going to be a lot better in 9.1 than it is right now, and so this kind of solidifies Unholy as a great partner with casters, whether it's BGs, arenas, whatever. This kind of solidifies Unholy as the caster partner spec and Frost as the melee partner spec. Right? Decomp Aura is now only blood. This is a slight nerf to the current iteration of Unholy and how a lot of top Unholies play, like Pet Kick, or when Mez messes around Unholy and pretty much copies Pet Kick spec. So this is a slight nerf to Unholy in its current iteration, but it's not really going to bother us at all. Cadaver's Pallor being removed. Never really had room for it anyway, unless you're doing like SSV TM Brawl. And Transfusion, a lot of people swear by Transfusion. It's useless. It was trash. Death Strike is trash, and so a talent that lets you Death Strike more is still trash, because the reason that Death Strike is trash is that at best you're healing for 3 or 4k a global while you're being chunked for 20 plus k a global by some you know, face rolling ret paladin. Trust me, I do it on my 200 eye level ret, where I just delete people. Transfusion's not going to save you. All right. So if you're interested in blood, if we scroll back up, you'll see that there's the 6% buff to all damage and healing for blood, right? So that's pretty cool. We're just going to kind of dance over blood real quick, just because I don't think many people are here to see how blood's going to do in PvP. But this could actually be some pretty good damage for blood, right? Hard Strike now deals 60% increased damage passively, but costs 3% of max health. The 3% of max health doesn't really matter because you're going to heal for that with every Death Strike. But the damage increase is going to be pretty nice, and maybe you're going to see some blood DKs actually be able to put up some decent damage numbers, right? This is also a buff to their damage. Dancing Rune Weapon now reduces duration of the actual, or Last Dance now reduces the duration of the actual Dancing Rune Weapon by 25% as opposed to 50%. Still reduces the cooldown by 50%, so this just increases the uptime of Dancing Rune Weapon, which is pretty good, right? Now the fun stuff starts. New PvP talent, Shroud of Winter. New PvP talent, Bitter Chill. These are absurd, right? So we'll skip down real quick, right? Heartstop Aura is removed. This was too oppressive. Everyone was complaining about it. So they nixed it, boom, removed, gone, see you later. All right, but they replaced it with two things that are just so oppressive, man. They're so oppressive. All right, so let's take a deeper look. Shroud of Winter, first off. Is that listed up here? No, it's not. What a piece of shit. Anyway, Shroud of Winter reduces the range of enemy spells when you're standing on them. Reduces the range of enemy spells within like 8 yards or 10 yards or something by 30%. By 30%. Alright, so for example, you're sitting on another DK, right? And you're trying to do a grip go on his healer. He's trying to do a grip go on your healer. Your grip's 30 yards. His is only 21. Your healer has 30% more range to work with before that DK can even grip him in because of this talent, right? And so it's not something that I think you're going to take all the time, but it's got a lot of really great niche uses for certain matchups, and it has the potential to be really good in a battleground setting where you're able to apply this to multiple enemies and force them into a tighter grouping for them to have to get up much closer to your allies to actually be able to be in range of them. You know, a mage trying to poly your back line, or especially in BGs, a druid trying to cast Cyclone. It's really going to mess with them. It's going to mess with their range. It's going to force them to be closer to your melee, and now your melee can counter what they're trying to do and put some better damage out too. So Shroud of Winter has the potential to be really strong in certain situations. If you watched any of my videos from last season or any of my VODs, you know that I play a lot with the Demon Hunter, and Demon Hunter got some really good talents to increase their, I wouldn't say single target pressure, but their solo pressure. So, you know, say we do a grip go on their healer, and then their healer escapes, my DH goes and tracks down their healer and sits on their healer, while I sit on the DPS and peel them and prevent them from peeling my DH off their healer, because DH is not going to do a ton of damage when they're only hitting one target, right? So Shroud of Winter helps with that, because now they can't get in range of my DH to actually peel him off the healer. So what do? They gotta bring their healer back closer to the DPS so the DPS can help heal, but now suddenly I'm in range of the healer, and now I'm smacking the healer too. So this talent has a lot of potential to be really annoying, and guess what? It's not even the most oppressive thing that we got. Bitter Chill is absurd. It is absurd. I can't believe that they thought this was a good idea. I can't believe they looked at Heartstop and said, we got to get rid of this, but we're going to replace it with Bitter Chill because that's not as oppressive. This is absurd. This talent is absurd, all right? So let's see if we can find it out here. So, no, it doesn't. What's the point of this? Why did I open this second tab? Oh, here we go. All right, cool. All right, so Bitter Chill. Chains of Ice reduces the target's haste by 12%. Frost Strike reduces or refreshes the duration of Chains of Ice. All right, 12%. Now, by all accounts on the PTR, this can force someone's haste negative. All right, so, you know, you think about, we're only in Season 2. We're not going to have a ton of secondary stats, and 60+% of all of our secondary stat allocation is going to Verse. How much haste do you really think people can get? 20% tops if they're only stacking haste after Verse? And even to do that, you'd probably have to do raids and Mythic Plus just to get haste Verse gear to fill in the slots where you can't actually get haste as another stat. So a lot of people are going to be really upset about a constant 12% reduction in their haste. You think about classes that have a cooldown based rotation like Ret or Enhance. and suddenly they don't have any more haste to shorten the cooldown on their rotational spells. They have a hard time generating Maelstrom stacks, they have a hard time generating Holy Power, and it just totally neuters their ability to maintain consistent pressure. Or you think about casters, I mean, think about a Warlock trying to cast Chaos Ball. Next thing you know, it's a 2.8 second cast or some shit. I can RP walk over to the pillar and duck around it real quick while he's still trying to cast Chaos Ball because he's got no haste. So this talent is going to be absurd. It's going to be super impressive. I can't believe they even thought about putting this in. But if you're excited to be playing DK 9.1, this is one of the reasons why. This talent is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Can you imagine in an RBG setting where your main objective is to keep everyone chained and control the pace of the game and the pace at which your enemy team can move? I mean, this is just taking that to a whole new level. Suddenly, not only is everyone on the enemy team slow 70%, but they all have minus 12 haste too. You almost gave them an anti-lust to an entire team. I mean, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. Alright, so these next two don't really affect us much because we're just never going to have room to run them, right? Dead of Winter no longer reduces the radius of Remorseless Winter. Sure, it's still not that great because it DRs your stun, and it is too easy to play around because they can just walk out at 3 or 4 stacks. So you're never really going to run this. Death Chill has potential. The radius of Remorseless Winter is increased to 8 yards, was 5 yards, so pretty much it doesn't reduce the radius anymore. So this could be good for the aforementioned strat of having your DH go to town on the healer while you peel the DPS and prevent them from being able to peel for their healer, right? So you just, especially against a melee cleave, if you're trying to do that strat, you know, every 20 seconds you have a nice root on both the melee, and then Shroud of Winter combined with that makes it really hard for them to get out and to help their healer. So a niche strat for that. Delirium, this is more of a side adjustment, not really a buff or a nerf, right? It's now 1 stack, slightly shorter duration, 1 stack for the same power of 2 stacks, but you can only apply it through Howling Blast. You can no longer refresh it with Frost Strike. So kind of a side grade, not really a huge change, not really something that's going to affect us much. We generally have a hard time finding room for Delirium unless you're teching it against a mage, for example. But you're not really going to have a lot of time to be, or a lot of comps or options where you're going to be able to run this very well, right? There's just better options for the most part, and as we said before, hard stops removed, right? But this is the part that everyone's looking forward to. This is the part everyone's excited for, right? The Unholy changes. So we're starting off with a bang. Necrotic Wounds. All right, we're back, baby. We're back. All right, Necrotic Wounds. This is huge. This is huge, right? This helps so much with all of the problems that DK's been having, that Unholy DK's been having right now, right? Too many setup globals. So what Necrotic Wounds does is it removes the setup global of actually having to apply Necrotic Strike. Necrotic Strike is now a passive that's baked in to popping wounds, right? So here it is. Bursting a Festering Wound converts it into a Necrotic Wound. So keyword there, bursting a Festering Wound. You're getting the actual damage from bursting the wound on top of the Necrotic Wound. It absorbs 5% of all healing received for 12 seconds, and it heals you for that amount when the effect ends. Max 6 stacks, so max 30% healing absorbed to all healing that they receive. Adding a stack does not refresh the duration. So, a couple pointers. Skill cap here. Adding a stack does not refresh the duration. So you want to front load your stacks, right? There's actually some finesse to playing this talent well, which is really cool. It's going to be a lot of fun, but there's so much great potential with this, right? So our build is pretty much going to be stack up 6 wounds, burst them all as quickly as possible, and then during those 12 seconds we want to stack up another 6 wounds so that we can go right back into it as soon as that stack falls off, right? And obviously there's one spell that's really fucking good for this, Apocalypse, immediately bursts 4 wounds, right? So think about the Crypt Fever talent, the Necromancer's Bargain talent, and then you combine that with the last level talent, the level 50 talent that reduces the cooldown of Apocalypse every time you use Epidemic or Death Coil, and then the Conduit that reduces the cooldown of Apocalypse every time you burst a wound, right? So we could potentially get every other 12-second window could be popped by Apocalypse for just huge pressure. So any class that brings a Mortal Strike effect is about to be insane with an Unholy DK, right? Because their Immortal Strike effect and our Absorb stack together. They don't cancel each other out. They stack together, which means that when we're putting single target pressure into a single character for a consistent period of time, it's going to be so hard to heal through that. It's going to be almost impossible to heal through that as we're popping all our burst and just wailing on this person, all right? So this is a huge change. This is amazing. This is single-handedly going to make Unholy DK really, really scary, all right? So what else? Doom Burst. Now this pairs really well with the new Necrotic Wounds, especially with that low cooldown Apocalypse build that we could potentially see. Right? Sudden Doom causes your next death coil to burst up to 2 Festering Wounds and reduces their movement speed by 45% per burst. So up to 90% movement speed for 3 seconds after bursting wound, right? So you build up 6 wounds. You have Apocalypse on cooldown, you get a Sudden Doom proc. You use Apocalypse and then Death Coil. Within 2 globals, you have max 6 stacks of your Necrotic Wound Absorb for the full 12 seconds. Well, 10.5 seconds, right? That's pretty wild. 10.5 seconds, absorbing 30% of all healing. You pair that with Sharpened Blade for 50% healing reduction. I mean, TSG with Unholy is going to be insane next season. It's going to be absolutely insane next season. It's going to be absolutely insane, right? Life and Death PvP talent now heals you for 5% of the healing received by targets affected by a virulent plague. Was 10% when they were afflicted by Festering Wound. This isn't going to mean much in Arena. This is amazing for Battlegrounds, all right? This is amazing for Battlegrounds. Right, because 10% of healing received by targets affected by a Festering Wound, that was at best 1 target, right? Because you don't really have the luxury in a BG setting of applying wounds to multiple targets, because it's a waste. It's a waste of runes and it's a waste of wounds because you're never gonna actually have the opportunity to pop all those wounds, right? So this is actually a really nice buff to Unholy survivability in Battlegrounds, because Life and Death is already really good for Dispel protection. I've seen teams blow themselves up, especially teams. You know, earlier in the season we saw a lot of teams with 2 HPALs. I have seen these guys blow up their own team by constantly dispelling Virulent Plague, right? I played a lot of Unholy early in the season, played it to about 2200, and even at that level, these guys are still doing it. I remember very specifically a Temple of Kotmogu where they blew up their own orbs and half the rest of their team by constantly dispelling my dots, right? Because they don't understand how strong this talent is for that setting, for that specific setting, and they're literally AoE dispelling my disease, causing 10 different virulent eruptions at 300% increased damage or whatever. But that's beside the point, because that's not the part that's buffed. This was already a good talent in a BG setting. It's now amazing, right? Heal for 5% of the healing received, and then you combine that with the old the new Necrotic Wounds, where we are healed for the amount absorbed when the effect ends, and suddenly Unholy DK is going to be pretty damn tanky. And that was one of my big issues with DK this whole season, is that we were so squishy for a play class, and now we're not. Now we're going to be really, really difficult to take down, especially in a BG setting where we can run Life and Death, right? Suddenly we are going to be this actual juggernaut that's really hard to kill, and that just slowly whittles down our opponents. So that's great. I'm really happy to see that. Now, slight nerf here. Raise a Bomb. Cooldown increased to 2 minutes. Was 1.5 minutes. Alright, this is a slight nerf, but honestly, I'm not too worried about it. We have so many good options now for talents. So many good options. You're always going to run Necrotic Wounds. In BGs, you're always going to run Life and Death. And in arenas, you're always going to run Strangulate probably. So Life and Death and Strangulate, you alternate depending on BGs or arena. You can run Strangulate in BGs as well. And so you have one option, or one slot left over for an option, right? So you can either run Raise a Bomb on a 2-minute cooldown, but pets die so quickly to cleave these days that it's like, is it even worth it, right? Doom Burst has use or functionality, has potential. Necrotic Aura, if you're playing with caster cleave, has a lot of potential, right? So we have other good options instead of Raise a Bomb. So this nerf really isn't huge, right? It sucks, sure, but we'll survive. And then finally, Necrotic Strike removed. We don't care because we got Necrotic Wounds, which is just a better version. All right, so 9.1 Unholy DK height, Frost DK height. All right, things are looking good. Things are looking up. I predict that we're going to see the resurgence of Unholy. Unholy is going to be amazing with any class that has a Mortal Strike debuff. It's going to be the preferred spec for any comp that plays with a caster core, whether that's in 3s or BGs. Frost kind of solidifies itself as the melee cleave spec. That being said, if you have a Mortal Strike debuff on your team, then Unholy can still go really well with that. And it's going to be a great season for DK. So I hope you guys are excited. I know I'm excited. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for 9.1 to finally fucking drop, right? And I'm really looking forward to it. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know how excited you are. Let me know what specs you're going to be trying out. And once 9.1 drops, let me know how it's going for you. Alright, so thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you want to see me practice DK once 9.1 drops, check out my channel at twitch.tv/Zaronce. And I hope to see you around. Thanks for watching.